Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabadis of Dalmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com.
You know, Rabbi, we have a very different type of show today.
All right.
You know, we never really talk, we talk about drugs and with the police officials, law enforcement officials on here, but we never talk to the people behind the scenes. Well, today's guest is Dr. Stuart Rosenblatt. He's the Executive Director of New Choices Recovery Center in Schenectady. So welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And
Pleasure to be here.
You're really on the front line of this of abuse of drugs and alcohol and gambling. Tell us what you're seeing in your...
Well, tell us what your organization is. What's New Choices? What are you there for?
New Choices Recovery Center is a comprehensive...
we talk like we're in our living room.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
New Choices Recovery Center is a comprehensive treatment program serving individuals with chemical dependency and other mental health challenges. We provide an array of services across a continuum of care. We operate a very busy and productive outpatient clinic serving individuals with full-day rehabilitation services. We also operate an intensive outpatient service as well as outpatient, depending on where an individual is in their recovery and what their needs are.
But is the patient, is this voluntary, like, hey, I'm in trouble, man, I'm an alcoholic, my life's going nowhere, I'll sign up? Or sometimes I know court says, you know, you're a mess. I mean, they may not say those words, but, you know, you're a mess with drugs, we caught you using drugs, you better get over to Dr. Rosenblatt's place. And, you know.
That's an excellent point. In fact, the significant majority of our clients are mandated by any number of entities: parole, probation, drug court, child and protective services, departments of social services. Parole, probation, it could be often a condition of their release that they participate in a substance abuse treatment program. Drug court, if you're not aware, offers an individual with felony and misdemeanor charges the option to enter into a rehabilitation program as an alternative to incarceration. So a significant percentage. We do serve a number of individuals who, through a variety of situations, come to us voluntarily.
Do you do the actual sit down with some of the patients, or are you more administrative?
As a clinical psychologist, inasmuch as I serve as the executive director, I spend a good amount of time with clients.
So they can see the top guy. I mean, you sit down.
Absolutely. We have a very open door. We're a small nonprofit, but we occupy a very important niche in the capital region, and particularly in Schenectady County.
No, I think it's important for the people to know that there's no ivory tower, that you're right there on the front lines. Does it ever get scary for you that here are these people as an alternative to incarceration, that they're coming to see you, no protection, you know? Does it scary sometimes?
No, I think the scariest thing being in this line of business is the fear that a client who you're serving will make a poor choice. That's particularly true in our community residential programs. We operate 4 community residences.
How many people residing there?
A total of 75.
That's a lot.
Yes, and we have 3 serving exclusively males, 1 serving exclusively females. And there's always the inherent risk that someone will make a poor choice, relapse, and overdose, and that's an ongoing concern that we have.
Now, separating the men and the women has nothing to do with Orthodox Judaism, I guess.
Just common sense.
Well, but they are together in the clinic during the day.
Yeah, they work together. You know, it's an interesting thing. One of my 10 jobs is I do go to prisons and visit the inmates, and they're supposed to be Jewish, but many others come in. So one of the statistics they say is that the people, the criminals that are in there, 60% are drug or drug related. I mean, they need drugs, so they go rob the store to get the few dollars to get their hit.
That's correct.
But I mean, I just always was looking for something for, you know, I feel bad for them because even though they're supposed to be, you know, reconciled to society afterwards, you know, that's officially, but I always was looking for programs like yourself. It's on one hand, 75 is a lot, but compared to how many drug-related crimes there are in New York State, it really, in a way, is small. Would you be able to, if you had the funds and the ability to expand the program?
Well, we have been expanding over the last couple of years. The beginning of the year, OASIS, which is the state oversight agency.
Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services.
That's correct.
Okay.
They approached us to assume responsibility for operating another clinic just further up State Street. A year and a half ago, we were awarded a very competitive grant to develop what's called, it's part of the Medicaid redesign team that the state has been recommending to contain Medicaid costs, but we opened yet another permanent supported housing program.
Excellent.
We have a very large Shelter Plus Care permanent supported housing program where we have close to 70 scatter site apartments, actually 80, throughout Schenectady County, where we subsidize the rent and provide case management supports.
What's your budget?
That's a good point.
Overall operating budget? Well, it's been increasing. In the
Yeah.
4 years that I've been there, it's increased by, I think, about 150%. We're now, again, a small
Yeah.
provider. We're $5 million.
How much is that per patient, though? How much does it come out in general?
I don't know, because I never did that analysis,
Really?
because our funding is comprised of multiple sources. The primary revenue source for our agency is Medicaid reimbursement. Most of our clients are Medicaid eligible, and we're reimbursed. The residential programs are largely state funded. Those are funds we get directly from, they're not Medicaid eligible services because they're not primarily medical in nature, whereas what we provide in the full day and clinic program is Medicaid eligible.
Well, I just would throw out, I know that it's per prisoner, it's inmate, it's $60,000
Right.
plus costing New York State. So I would say that this would be number one, more economical, beneficial for New York State. And like of course, I mean, I care about New York State too. I mean, their money, but also I have to deal with the inmates too and counsel
correct.
them. And this is, I'm sure, benefiting the patient more than locking them up into a cell. That they're
There's
gaining
no
more.
question about the tremendous cost savings in providing treatment as an alternative to being in prison. Not to mention the savings in human suffering, I mean, which one can calculate. So,
Do you ever have like outbursts from the patients that, you say, well,
absolutely.
we really should have more protection, plexiglass or something that, I mean, you don't want to have a barrier, but you got to have safety for your employees also.
It's something that we discuss, I mean, which is why, I mean, we're open from 8 in the morning till 8, 9 at night, and we always ensure that there's adequate staffing there to contend
And
with.
9 o'clock at night down on that part of State Street is not always the safest time to go home. So I'm just saying.
Well, we park nearby.
Yeah,
I mean,
nearby,
you're bringing up good points.
And that's why I'm just trying to,
Yeah, but we're not a prison. I mean, we're
Right.
actually trying to be an inviting organization where people can come in and feel safe.
What would people watching this program be most surprised about that they really don't know about what goes on with addiction and people who are addicted to either drugs, alcohol, or gambling?
Okay. I think what may or may not be so surprising is the magnitude and complexity of the issues that people are struggling with way beyond just the addiction. It's not just merely the drugs, it's the other aspects of their lives, both social issues with their families, spiritually. The individuals we're serving are, come to us with a host of challenges in their life, separate and apart from the mere addiction. So we we aspire to serve people holistically and attend to all aspects of their lives. Our programming, our groups, our staff are seeking to address people in a comprehensive manner, and we do so within the organization and through linkages and referrals to other organizations as
You
well.
know, when you say spiritual, that's my line, because I'm the rabbi.
Right.
But I know Dr. Twersky, Abraham Twersky, who was one of the leaders of in alcoholism abuse, and I mean, he really keeps himself sectarian. He doesn't proselyte
Right.
and tell them to become Jewish, even though he is a rabbi. But the idea that, I know Alcohol Anonymous, they're always looking for the superior being, that someone of the Almighty to lift them out of their doldrums. I mean,
Well, let me just say this, there's a prohibition. We can't actively subscribe to this 12-step model
why not?
in a treatment program, because it used to be, early on in the substance abuse world, most of the programs were grassroots programs. They actually arose out of the 12-step movement, and there were various individuals that objected to having to subscribe to the 12-step model, having to subscribe to giving themselves over to a higher power. So all we can do as a treatment provider, we can't mandate anybody to attend AA, NA meetings in as much as they're very helpful. We can encourage someone to attend self-help meetings outside New Choices, but no treatment program can sponsor a 12-step program as part of their treatment and recovery.
That's interesting, I didn't know that.
And what are you seeing a trend towards? Where's the abuse trending these days?
Well, I mean, as you probably see in the papers and you could see in the big advertising campaign that's been launched, is just the ever-increasing use of heroin and opioid painkillers and prescription drugs. That's reaching what I would consider to be epidemic proportions. I think I read on Oasis's website a little while ago that there's been as much as 150, 200% increase in the number of admissions for heroin and opioid.
Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it has to do with, well, the whole couple of reasons. First of all, I mean, the availability of heroin, cheap heroin, has increased dramatically, but also a gateway, one of the gateway mechanisms for people to get into heroin is abuse of prescription drugs. And that's where a lot of the problem resides. Prescription drugs, and we're talking about painkillers, we're talking about antidepressants, we're talking about tranquilizers, we're talking about stimulants. They're continue to be widely prescribed. Often
And people get hooked on them.
they get hooked on them, and then when they're no longer available, what have you, people will take to the streets and seek heroin.
And you're seeing an increase of
Yes.
customers or clients?
That's correct.
Okay, for that?
That's correct.
Okay, now, with alcoholism, they say that on the street, they call it courage juice.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that expression?
No, I haven't.
Because when you take enough scotch or you take enough
Right.
whiskey, you tend to want to do things that you normally wouldn't. It breaks down your inhibitions.
That's correct.
So, do you still see a lot of
I would say
alcoholics out there? I mean,
very
is
much
it-
so. I mean, that's a mainstay of the people we serve.
Well, I
people with
remember when I was
alcohol.
in 5th grade, I wrote a little book report about alcoholism. Is it an
Oh.
addiction or a drug?
Okay.
And it was, it
It's
was
both. Right,
And
exactly.
I wrote about that, and the teacher not only gave me an A, but made me read it in front of the whole class, which I really didn't want to do. But but since I was 10 years old, that was something that I was been focused on, is
Interesting.
alcoholism abuse, and I've been making.
I mean, one of the issues we have many times here, and there's a lot of politicians, Mark course, knows many of them and brings them here. But it's a hot issue of legalizing marijuana.
Correct.
Oh,
I mean, it's around the nation. I mean, I'd like to hear your view of it. I mean, and then I'll tell you, of course,
Your view.
you made the synagogue, the Jewish view. I don't know if it's a Jewish view. I shouldn't say it's my view, and maybe it's Jewish, maybe it's not. I mean, I have my personal views about things, but like I say, it's in our synagogue when in our temple, and like two good Jews, there are three different opinions, so we have some
Right.
heated discussions, amongst them. But first of all, let's hear what your opinion
Well, I mean,
is.
obviously, it's a very controversial issue, but, there's very clear-cut evidence that, I mean, we serve a significant percentage of individuals who smoke marijuana, and in addition, I mean, many individuals are what we would consider polysubstance abusers. They use a variety of substances. But, clearly, I mean, there is evidence in the research literature to suggest that marijuana as a medicine, properly administered, can be very helpful in treating a whole slew of medical disorders for which Western medicine, sometimes the side effects are worse than the ailment.
I just think it should be administered the way morphine is administered at the end of life. I mean, you don't hear anyone really being addicted to morphine anymore, and but it's you're still there.
Heroin is
but
synthetic
of morphine.
of processing of morphine.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if they do it in the hospital, if they if it's done under doctor supervision, where they don't say, all right, take it home, where someone else could take advantage of it.
Correct.
I think, so you're okay with medical marijuana?
I got mixed emotions about it.
But it's
and-
leaning towards okay? I mean, on the scale of 1 to 100, you're on the good side of
I would
50%?
say.
Okay.
I would say.
People say they'll legalize marijuana, and of course, a few states have already done it, so
Correct.
it's quote-unquote normal already. I mean, you have a few states in the United States. I'm totally against it because a little bit like I said before, I see the downside of it. People are hooked and they're addicted and ruins their lives. So maybe I'm a little scared because I see more than the guy in the street, the regular person who
Well,
says,
you have good
oh, it's
cause
cute.
to be. You have good cause to be skeptical and cautious.
But that's what Mark reminded me. People, on the other hand, they'll counter me and say, you know how bad alcoholic is? Alcohol
Right,
is?
I
There's
agree.
so many alcohols. Why don't you want to ban that? Which I don't, because I want to make Kiddush
Right.
on wine over here. So I don't really have a good answer to say,
Right.
to
Neither
answer
do
them
I,
back.
Rabbi.
All
Neither
right,
do I.
so let me ask you this. There's a proposal to have a casino in Schenectady, city of
Correct.
Schenectady. Are you gearing up for Gamblers Anonymous, or not anonymous, but Gamblers Addiction? And,
Yes.
and what are you doing to
Well,
prepare yourself for this influx that you're going to have?
there is a credential that one could acquire, and several of our clinicians are actually pursuing that credential to provide a bona fide protocol for serving people. We're already serving a number of individual. Gambling addictions often are accompanied by substance abuse. So again, when I was talking about the myriad of challenges that people who seek treatment or who are mandated treatment bring to the agency, it can't be underestimated. So we're already serving a number of individuals with gambling problems, not to mention the fact that they're gambling with their lives just by the mere, lifestyles and choices that they've made. But interestingly enough, within the legislation, and there'll be 4 casinos,
Yeah.
there is a certain amount of money that's being allocated for every slot machine. There's a certain amount of money that's going to be set aside to provide treatment and prevention services for gambling.
So they know it's already going to be a problem, and they're putting aside money
Well,
to
let me just
treat
tell you
that.
this.
I mean, I guess.
New York State is, in my opinion, grossly underfunded presently to provide an adequate amount of gambling treatment and prevention services. I mean, I think in stark contrast to other states. So, I mean, apparently within the legislation that agrees to set up 4 casinos, there is a certain percentage of revenues that are to be given over, I'm assuming, to Oasis.
And that's inadequate, what you're saying, that
Well, that
set aside.
influx, well, I don't know whether it's going to be adequate or not, but
Okay.
I know what's currently funded.
How much is currently funded?
In New York State, for the entire state, I don't think it's much more than $2 million statewide.
That's not too much.
So
And do
For a
you
big
get
state
any of
like
that, does any of that money come to your
No.
center? No.
generally speaking, the money allocated for problem gambling has been cut over the years. And most of that money is not, I think it goes to prevention agencies. We're a treatment agency.
Right,
We're
right.
a licensed treatment agency.
You're after they've already been addicted.
That's correct.
You know, they're trying to do prevention
That's
before you
correct.
become addicted, so.
Right. It's
Okay.
the best way to, the best defense against addiction is never to start.
It's an education
That's correct.
campaign,
And
basically.
schools, many counties have councils on prevention.
Mhm.
Saratoga does, Saratoga, Schenectady, Warren, Washington, and they work with youth primarily. They go into the schools and to educate the kids on the risks associated with substance abuse and gambling.
So have you been speaking out against this casino in Schenectady? Are you staying neutral?
No, but I participate in a coalition of substance abuse providers of Northeast New York. I'm actually the president-elect of that coalition, and we've been having discussions and meetings lately on the imminent increase in gambling, and we
What was
work
the name
with
of the group again that you're?
Cosapenny. It's a
Oh.
long name.
So it's different from Council on Addictions of New York State?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I
'Cause
don't know
that
what
was-
you're reading from. No.
Yeah, no, there was something on your website, a
Oh.
link to.
That needs to be updated.
Okay, but there's
No,
a-
it's a coalition of substance abuse providers of Northeast New York. Many regions of New York have coalitions
Okay.
of, they have it in the mental health world, we have it in the substance abuse.
You know, there was a meeting recently in Albany, on Wolf Road, at a hotel on Wolf Road, where everyone was able to speak about their opinion, speak out regarding gambling, regarding the casinos.
But the people in the street, I mean, it was just for
Everyone,
professional, or
and-
was
yeah.
it the
Town
man in the
hearing of
street?
sorts?
Town hearing.
Everyone and anyone who wanted to come, they could comment. They were streaming it live. They were trying to get as many people as possible to come in there, and they were going to stay till everyone had their say. And I thought it was really terrific. But it came with a lot of people, the usual suspects. I didn't hear anyone talk about the addiction issue.
Interesting.
And it would have been nice to have you there to make them aware of.
Well, there is the
addiction
Council
issue.
on Problem
Problem
Gambling.
yeah.
Jim Maney
And I
and
didn't see
Oasis
them.
have staff.
Yeah. Well, Oasis won't
sorry.
speak up because they're the governor's
Correct.
the agency. So
What is your staff? We haven't gone into that. We said the budget, but what are the qualifications? Are MSW, I would assume?
We have what is considered to be a high caliber, multidisciplinary staff made up of licensed social workers, licensed mental health counselors, registered nurse, I'm a psychologist. We have CASACs, which are credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselors. What else do we have? So we have a staffing pattern that's very similar to what you would find in most psychiatric clinics. I know that because for most of my career I was in the mental health world in New York City. So,
And what would be then, if you can, it's hard to say the success rate. I mean, I know it's always hard to,
Well-
what is it, 1 year down the line, 5 years down the line?
is there a high recidivism rate? Maybe that's a different way of
Yeah,
asking
maybe
the same
hour rate,
question.
but-
well, I mean, if you consider substance abuse to be a chronic relapsing disorder, much like diabetes and asthma, I mean, it's fair to say, I mean, we have substantial success with our clients, but we also, I mean, it may take many, many attempts.
Takes
for
a lot of
someone.
patience.
Takes a lot of
patience
patience for
to-
staff and what have you. But
And-
there is a fair amount of recidivism, and
And you also have a drunk driver program.
that's correct.
And tell us about that and how
Well, I
that
mean,
evolved.
people who are seeking to regain their licenses after a DWI or a DUI, I mean, depending on what the infraction was, we offer, it's DOT, DMV approved. We offer a 12-week course. People are required to come, and they're taught by certified individuals, instructors that we retain. And after going through a 12-week program, depending on with what frequency, you know, they've, you know, gotten violations, they're able to regain their license. So that's a very valuable program.
Yeah.
For
And
us
one
to
that most
operate.
people might not know that you offer.
That's true.
You
That's
know,
true.
so-
Although we're, again, one of the few places in our neck of the woods, we're one of the few providers of substance abuse services that provide community residential programs, programs that are generally, they're halfway houses. People stay there for 4 to 6 months. We're one of the few places that sponsor permanent supported housing program accompanied by case management services. So there are some unique aspects of New Choices.
And just to let the audience know that between 1968 and 2006, there's been an evolution to become New Choices Recovery. You know, with different names, and it all sort of evolved
Well,
into
our
what-
legal name still
so-
remains the Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Council of Schenectady County. That's our legal name, but this is prior to my coming
Right.
on board.
No,
They
but-
sought to come up with a DBA, and New Choices Recovery Center is as good as it's going to get.
And it was chosen in the mid-2006.
That's correct.
You know, so it's relatively a new name, if
That's
you will.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, 8 years old or whatever, you know, so.
It's a baby.
It's a, you know, in the world of alcohol, in the world
Right.
of addiction, yeah, it's a baby. But
Is there a
that's-
trend nationally to what you're doing? To me, I think you're doing the greatest thing, again, because, like, again, maybe because I have a skewed view that I see people in prison. So what are you doing in prison? Why don't you just get educated and help these people out just to lock them up? But to me, you're doing such an enormous service to the community. But can you talk about nationally a little bit? I mean, are there more and more trends of helping people instead of incarcerating them?
And
Well,
you
I
have
mean,
2 minutes to talk about it
Yeah.
nationally.
Okay. Right, but I mean, I think driven by a whole host of issues, primarily overcrowding in the prisons, I mean, and the financial expense associated, you know, with incarcerating people, and also depending on, I mean, there's been a lifting of some of the stiffer penalties associated with, you know, drugs, you know, selling and possession. I mean, there were people in the old days put away for relatively minor offenses for extended sentences.
The Rockefeller drug laws.
That's correct, which were repealed. So, yes, there's a need and a recognition that people should be given the opportunity to rehabilitate, to recover, to rejuvenate, and those are, I should say, you know, when we were talking earlier about the spiritual aspects of, I mean, I think it's fair to say, you know, whether it's the 12-step programs, AA, NA, you know, most of them are sponsored in churches. I don't know of any synagogues that sponsor AA services.
There's a
but
few of them,
I
but
think
yeah.
steeped in the Jewish tradition is the concept of recovery and you know, and I think that's just when you think about the Yom Kippur and what have you. So that's what we also try to, you know, reach out to people.
Doctor, I think you really are doing the Jewish view. That's why you go down the Jewish view, because recovery and helping people instead of incarcerating
correct.
them and punishing them, that really is the Jewish view. Thanks, you're doing great service to the community. Continue what you're doing, not only continue, but grow more and more for help more and more people, and do it all with good health.
All the best of success, yes.
Thank you.